right. Welcome everyone to the Personnel Administration Committee. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, and we are coming at you from the HR Council Conference Room here in the beautiful Monroe County Courthouse. I will notice for the record that Councilmember McKim and Councilmember Iverson are present, and we do have quorum for this meeting. Therefore, I call this meeting to order. Come on in. Any empty seat is yours. The first item on our agenda is an adoption of this agenda. Councilmember McKim, do you have any changes to today's agenda?
I do not.
I don't either. Therefore, we'll move forward with the agenda that you all have in front of you here in the room, as well as if you're joining us online, you can view from the calendar on the county's main page. We're going to start with our health departments. We have Lori Kelly here to talk about a review of quite a few WIS recommendations. Walk us through.
Sure. So I'm not sure what the next step is, but these were all job descriptions, new and current job descriptions that were sent to WIS. The review has come back, and I believe we take these to council now.
That would be the initial step. I know that some things have happened in your department.
Yes.
Since the last time that you've been here, since you've been sent to WIS, particularly with the Futures Clinic. I don't want to get out ahead of my colleague, Mr. McKim. Sure. Do you have any questions or comments for the health department before we launch into other things?
Well, I mean, I think there are at least some, is it just the clinical services and case management director position that's directly related to the Futures Clinic, the clinic coordinator?
Yeah, yes, that would be correct. So that was the new position. Then we have clinic coordinator, clinical assistant, nurse practitioner, and licensed practical nurse. So those would not be, the futures position would not be moving forward. We would still be requesting a director position, but that needs to be modified.
Okay, so right, so essentially now you are not asking us to approve the clinical service and case management director, the clinic coordinator, the clinical assistant, and the nurse practitioner.
Correct.
But all the rest of them.
Correct.
Okay, and you concur with all the other, or do you have, I guess I'd like to hear your concerns, if any, with any of the.
I did have some concerns about the disease intervention specialist and program coordinator and the disease intervention specialist position. Those did not come back classified as I would feel that they should. So those were my two ones that I had concerns about.
Yeah, and just for those of you watching, all of the WIS recommendations that Ms. Kelly was just talking about are in the packet you can find on the calendar entry around page 4 and 5. So those are there. I don't have particular questions. I think the most pressing issue at this point is to address what's happened with the Futures Clinic. I'm looking to Council Administrator Ms. Kim Schell. Do you have a recommendation for us at this point?
At this point, I agree with Lori with regards to we don't need to move forward with the licensed practical nurse, the clinic coordinator, clinical assistant, and the nurse practitioner. I do think that we need to not approve at this time the clinical services case management director position to allow her to take it back to the board and revamp it to remove any of the futures duties that were in there. And so, which would then, we would need to work with her and the board again. And then once that's done, if it's okay with you, once that's done, then we'll just forward on back to WIS without coming back again. But that would be my recommendation rather than having to wait till October for another meeting to say, move,
Okay.
That certainly makes sense to me.
That makes sense to me. Let me go over to E. Sensenstein, who, do you have any thoughts or recommendations? All right. And Ms. Kelly, does that sound good to you?
Yes, I think that that sounds like a great plan. And then I think I would just be looking for direction on how to kind of move forward with the DIS positions, whether that's something that I could just present to the council to make a request on maybe tying that to a different salary, or whether we want to actually try to go back through the process of WIS again.
I believe, WIS has, classified these according to what their standards are. So, at this point, then it becomes a fiscal issue, which then needs to go to the entire council.
I agree. And regardless of department, that's the way council handles it. As you might suspect, you're not the first department to have a WIS recommendation come back below the standards that you thought they would come back at. So we handle this pretty regularly. So Mr. McKim, do you have a motion?
Well, hang on. I guess I just wanted to ask on the disease intervention specialist. So the specialist program coordinator came back as a Pat B. What position would you say that's equivalent to in the org chart? Is there something that's kind of on the same level?
Yes, so I believe that this to be equivalent would be classified as a Pat C. So this position is supervising personnel, it's training, it's doing interviewing. It's also overseeing 12 of our counties for disease investigations, contact tracing, making recommendations for medication treatment plans. So I just think that it's a much higher level. If you compare that to, for example, we have our pool inspectors, food inspectors, we have Pat C. We have a senior community health specialist that's a Pat C. They are kind of playing those roles as like a team leader, kind of doing some of that day-to-day oversight and management. I really see this program coordinator position being aligned with those other Pat C positions.
Okay, so for example, you've got a behavioral health and wellness coordinator at a Pat C, and then the disease intervention specialist program coordinator at a Pat B. I'm curious what in the job description would have, what factors in the job description came out as less, lower span of control or less intensive than the behavioral health and wellness coordinator.
And that's really just kind of my thought behind it. For example, with our GIS program coordinator, all of last week, I was working hand in hand with her on developing our standard protocols, standard orders for gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. That's something that I think requires a high level of independent thinking and would be classified higher than a Pat B.
Well, I guess as Mr. Iverson indicated, that is ultimately that probably would have to be a decision made then by the whole council. So I'll go ahead and move that we forward to the whole council the WIS recommendations for health administrator, environmental health services director, public health preparedness director, vital records and administrative support director, disease intervention specialist program coordinator, financial manager, vital records and administrative support assistant director, disease intervention specialist, maternal and child health coordinator, assistant registrar, and that's it.
Second. The motion has been moved and we have a second. Is there further recommendations or discussion from staff? Mrs. Kim, do you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah.
Mr. McKim.
And I will just say, I'm definitely open to moving that disease intervention specialist. Why do I have so much trouble with that word? I'm open to moving that up. I agree that it seems low compared to what I think the requirements for the job are, but.
And I'll just chime in. It's very helpful to see it within context of the org chart. I feel like a broken record. I always love to see the org chart. And this is one of the reasons why is it allows for pretty quick comparison. All right, we have a motion and we don't have our third member online. All right, we're all here, so we can do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it unanimously.
Okay, and then Lori, you just let me know when you want to get together and We'll clean that one up.
All right, let's move to item letter B, a request to change job description reporting structure due to WIS review. Ms. Kelly, do you want to talk about this at all?
Oh, sure. So, because we were creating some of the newer director positions, this, basically is just making modifications for the reporting structures. There were some minor changes made in our environmental job descriptions, as well, just adding in the language for cross-training. But essentially, I think that pretty much captures this here.
Yeah. Mr. McKim, any comments or questions? I don't either, other than if we really wanted to delve into this, I would recommend we pull the org chart back up, but this is really straightforward to me.
The only thing that I will say are the ones that report to the clinical services and case manager. I will just wait until that comes back for the for another review for PAC. So, but everything else, if it's okay, I will move forward with the other positions as they relate to the ones that you're approving moving forward. So,
All right.
I move we approve the changed job descriptions due to WIS review for community health specialist, tobacco, MRC, behavioral health and wellness coordinator, senior environmental health specialist, wastewater, foods, general, data entry clerk part-time, and public health emergency preparedness assistant part-time, with the understanding that the clinical services and case management director position may itself change in the interim.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. And in case anybody doubted how big this department is, it's all laid out in front of us. I'm looking to staff for any final discussion before the vote. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
I will, the ones that, the positions that are approved to move forward will be on the next council meeting on the 10th. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Glad we got through that very quickly.
Yes.
All right, next, we're going to go over to our auditor's office with a request to amend job descriptions. What's going on?
Okay, so I'm bringing this back to you, hoping for your approval. So the duties required for the accounts payable process have increased as a result of several things. There's a change in our financial system, new state statute, internal control adjustments for separation of duties, and just an increased level of claims auditing that we are now doing. So we're requesting that the accounts payable administrator and financial director job descriptions and titles be revised and reviewed by WIS to implement the changes accordingly. So as you can see from the job descriptions we submitted, there's a lot of red, a lot of changes, a lot more duties added, a lot more controls in place, and just with the change to how we are going paperless, and just a lot more work as far as auditing and so forth.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And if this sounds familiar, we discussed it last month, and this item was tabled to this meeting. So, Mr. McKim, you, of course, weren't here last month. Do you have any questions or comments to guide the discussion?
I guess I'd like, this is another one where we got to see the org chart. I guess is maybe the broader question is with these changes, how do the changes benefit the county? In other words, is it creating more work or less work, or just centralizing work that departments were otherwise doing? Or
so, yeah, that's a great question. A little bit of all of the above. It's not creating more work. It's just establishing a better procedure internally and adding more controls. So, previously we had, one person doing the entire claims process, and then the financial team as a whole would audit and so forth. So there was a backup, but not a true replacement for this person. So now it's almost like a job share. Like the two positions are able to completely essentially swap duties, totally cover for each other. So vacations can be had, and we're not at a loss when somebody is ill or goes on vacation. And we just tightened up controls and changes to processes as well. So it's a much better system for all involved, and we're catching things prior to problems now. So just a lot of changes that are going to help overall. So we can alert departments when there's an issue prior to it becoming like a real problem, and we have to go through and make corrections, or something's not caught because people aren't trained, I guess, the way they need to be to really audit well.
And the org charts on the board there.
And that didn't really change, other than just updating titles.
Okay, so neither of them are going to be reporting to each other. They're still reporting to the financial director.
Right. Mhm. But their duties and responsibilities increased a lot with the new procedure. So Carly, do you have anything to add?
No, you covered it really well. Actually, I do. I'm sorry. With the major change that happened in WOW a few months back, it happened overnight, and these girls that are in these roles right now had to completely rewrite the procedure for not only our department, but for the entire county as a whole. They did a great job. They took a procedure that was a one-pager, and I believe it's probably up to 10 pages at this point, and it very clearly lays out how departments are supposed to enter claims, and then also they're working on an internal process to audit claims as tightly as we can.
So why was it, I guess, why did Lau make the change? Did they?
For controls, essentially.
So, okay, all right.
This is locking down. So this person that is submitting the claim or person entering the claim cannot submit. There has to be that separation. It forces that separation, and we can audit, and that's part of their procedure as well, is we see who's doing what now. And so we know that somebody's not simply stamping a department head's name on it because they're entering their credentials.
Okay, so
Stuff. And it is time consuming, but it is a great control, and we are working with WOW to make some updates to the procedure. So like a department could maybe like approve all if they've already reviewed everything and are comfortable, rather than clicking into each individual claim. So another part of that, though, is everything is virtual now. So like we're adding files, adding the claims, like the documents to WOW. So with a click of a button, you can see everything. It's actually a great change. There's some kinks to work out, but we're getting there.
okay, so it might be kind of a hassle for some departments at the beginning
It is.
as they're getting used to it, but the payoff is the increased internal controls,
That's right.
not necessarily that it's easier. It's that
It will become easier. We're not there yet, but yes, the increased internal controls is the huge payoff for all of us right now.
okay. Thank you.
It also makes researching better. So right now,
Not digging up their person files.
yes.
So, I mean, that's after a certain amount of time, obviously everything goes to the basement. So we did obviously implement like scanning and uploading, but that also takes time, staff time and so forth. So.
Okay, so now at this point, when departments are submitting a claim, they would actually just upload the electronic
Yes.
version. Presumably, they'd have received the invoice in electronic form as well already, because most people don't send paper, or at least most vendors are capable of sending
Yes.
electronic documentation.
So, and I imagine that departments can work with the vendor too to receive it in that format to make things easier as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
The only comments I'll make are the ones I'll reiterate from last month is clearly there's benefits to going digital. And the second thing that I like is what's on the screen right now is that the processes that you go through are so detail oriented and so intense that having two people be able to take over when one's on vacation or one's on leave, whatever the case is, means that the county can just keep on operating
Yes.
smoothly
Mhm.
without sacrificing staff, vacation or time off or
Our
whatever.
services to the internal vendors doesn't decline when somebody's on vacation, which is great.
That makes a lot of sense to me. All right, let's go to Ms. Michelle, do you have any comments or questions on this
No, I did
from a council perspective?
review with Chris, the chief deputy about the duties and this kind of thing. So I believe, yes, this warrants a forward to WIS.
Since it's time, do you have any thoughts?
I just think succession planning is a really great thing that we should do.
The voice of wisdom and experience right there. All right. Mr. McKim, do you have a motion that you're considering?
Yes, I move that we forward the AP and financial administrator and accounts payable director job descriptions to WISP for classification.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further conversation or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Kim. You'll be working with Michelle.
That's all right.
Yeah, you'll be working with, so we'll get this over there in due time, and then we'll see you back at PAC to review it.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Next, we have the recorder's office with a request to create a new position. What's going on here?
So there are currently administrative duties being performed by a current member of our staff. So the job description needs to more accurately reflect those current duties and responsibilities. It would not increase personnel since this position is already existing in our office. We would also like to add some additional financial responsibilities. So the classification and compensation should be reviewed as well.
All right, we have a redlined version of a job description in the packet, and Michelle is sharing the org chart online. Mr. McKim, you want to lead us off with questions or comments?
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more about what you're trying to accomplish here, because the way, if I just read it based on what I see in the description here, it's basically trying to give the chief deputy a chief deputy, which we explicitly do not do, and that's been a principle throughout our classification as long as I've been here, is that simply creating a backup for somebody when they're not there doesn't automatically elevate the classification of a person. But maybe if I understood more about what you're actually trying to do.
Sure, understood. So as opposed to the health department, we are a small but mighty department of 6 full-time people, including myself as the elected official and Eric Schmitz as the chief deputy. So we have 4 full-time people. In the absence of Eric and myself, which happens periodically, we need to have one person who is in charge. We've had some issues in the past where that was not the case, and it involved customer interaction and other things as well. This person currently in our absence does end-of-day procedures, which is not only updating reporting, it's also financial transactions, so balancing at the end of the day and posting those results. And with the update in Lao, the auditor's office has requested that we have a third person who is fluent in Lao financial transactions to help with claims, payroll, things as well, billing, copy billing, things like that. And so these additional duties would also be added to this position. So it's good to have someone who can perform those duties. There have been multiple times when Eric and I both been absent from the office for one reason or another, even sometimes during the day. And so this would clearly establish this person as the authority, plus adding those additional financial responsibilities, I think makes it worth a look at reclassifying the job description and the position. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it definitely does. I guess maybe one question I have is whether this needs some more detail as far as the financial responsibilities, because all it says right now is assist recorder and chief deputy with financial responsibilities when needed, excluding budget projections. But other job descriptions here that have financial responsibilities, and maybe that's a question for E. do they typically have more detail than that?
I'm gonna pass that over to Kim.
It depends, especially if it's a financial manager, the financial manager's positions will have more detail. With regards to if this is like a backup, what you can do, it can be very generic. But then the detail then lies with the supervisor providing that detail. So we can do it, we can add certain duties that she wants definitely this person to do in their absence. And we can provide that detail to make it clearer.
Yeah, that just seems awfully, I do understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that and support that.
I looked at the chief deputy description and it was not particularly detailed, which is why I left it vague here. So, but that's something that I'm happy to do. This is my first PAC review.
Yeah,
So it's helpful to have those kinds of questions so I know what detail to provide in the future, either verbally or in the job description.
okay. Yeah, I guess I would like to see a little bit more about what financial responsibilities would be part of this position description. And then how, and this may also be an E question, how is, I kind of jokingly refer to it as the chief deputy getting a chief deputy, but how is this situation? Because I understand there is kind of a need for somebody who's not a supervisor, right? The intention is not to make this person the supervisor, but to make them kind of have operational command control when
That's a really good way to put it, yes.
So how is that typically handled in other?
I would also default to Kim, but I will say, just because the auditor is not here, but the addition of that claims process and it requiring the two-factor sort of approval, I think you might see this in more instances because you technically then do need three people, because if one person's not there, somebody will default to that role that may not have always done that, but.
Yes, and we do have this in other departments. For instance, in the assessor's office, we have the elected, we have the chief deputy, and then the class level 3 PETA BOA person is the next in charge.
And is that it? How is that written?
It's in it is written that in the absence of the elected and the chief deputy, this person then assumes the responsibilities of those.
Okay.
Too. So.
Okay, so this writing is similar to the.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that I did check, so.
Okay.
I think in most of the chief deputy departments, there's somebody else.
And we also have, back with the health department, we also have that in place with the health department where I think it is it's vital records. I think the vital records person then steps in, when the health officer and the health administrator is out, the vital records person then is the person that they go to.
One of the other things that's in bold red here that would be more formalized is assisting with training. We have 2 employees now, 2 full-time employees that have been here since January this year, with the retirement Cynthia McGreal and taking 17 years of county experience with her, 15 of those in the recorder's office. We'll be having a new person. And since we are one of the lower paid departments, we have a lot of turnover. And so I'm anticipating this being an ongoing duty at this position, not just for the short term, but also for the long term.
Okay. Well, I guess, I don't know. One way to proceed. I don't know how Mr. Iverson feels about this, but one way to proceed is to approve forwarding this on to WIS with the contingency that the recorder work with Michelle to kind of use some language about financial responsibilities that's more precise. Is that?
Yep.
I'm also comfortable with that.
Okay. So I guess I make that motion.
All right, I'll second that motion. We have a motion on the table with a second. Is there any further conversation about the motion on the table? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. I will make one further comment. I think the observation that this triplicate of duties is going to be more common given the requirements, we might want to come up with suggested language for departments to put into job descriptions so that PAC doesn't become every department coming in, updating a job description. Not that you're a burden. We love seeing you.
I appreciate this. That's
It's true.
I mean, that's why we're here too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if every department needs this. Yeah, we're good. Work with Michelle and then we'll get that off to Wiss and then we'll see you back here.
I will do that. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to a series of items with probation department. Let's start with the request to amend a job description.
Okay, so I'm Linda Brady, Chief Probation Officer. The job description that I'm asking to amend is the office administrator, and the person, the incumbent who's in it is Melissa Wallace. Some of the questions we have to answer for the WISP forms asks, is it more volume? Is it change of duties? And it's both. I'll address the more volume first. The department has grown to now we have 87 employees. And but more than that, financially, we have 28 budgets. So whenever a claim comes in, she has to decide between all of these 28 budgets, which budget and what legally, is it a grant? Does it come out of some grants, partial grants? We split it amongst various budgets. So there are a lot of decisions that have to be made on every claim that comes through from the financial person because of having 28 budgets. And also with the new LAO system and the new attendance on demand, in the former job description, you might see that forwards this to the financial manager, forwards to the financial manager. That's referring to the court's financial manager. So at this point, the court's financial manager is not involved at all in the claims process for probation. She's not involved in the payroll. She's not involved in any of the financial processes for probation. So all of it has come to our department. And so that we don't have a financial manager. That's just our financial manager. So we put those duties on our office administrator. And now she's the one submitting payroll. She's the one submitting, checking up all the attendance on demand and the claims process, which is significant. I mean, you asked some good questions, Jeff, about the more work. And I'll just say from my perspective as department head, I'm one of the ones who approved the claims. I went from 10 minutes to now it's more than an hour for just myself which hopefully it'll get faster and I'll get faster, but it's, and I understand you have to do it this way, but it does take longer, right? It takes more time. And and again, with 28 different budgets to make sure the claims are coming out of the right place. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So I want to make sure that it's a correct representation of her job as it exists now.
Excellent. We have, thank you for that. We have a redlined job description and a org chart referencing the complexity that you were just talking about. Your org chart looks very little like any other departments.
Well, there's my org chart.
Yep. We're gonna have to.
But I have names on it, so I could create one without names and just have positions.
I normally do that.
Oh, okay, that's
because
fine.
yours was so lengthy, I didn't have time to do it. So
Obviously, we've got.
I will simplify it.
Yes, you can simplify. Yes, yeah. So it's obviously a large.
All right. I think curious minds want to know what Mr. McKim is thinking. You want to lead us off with questions or comments?
I actually don't really, other than I'm starting to understand kind of what the whole impact of all these changes to the claims processing and financial system are. I mean, it definitely, I very much appreciate the internal controls focus. I think that is extremely important for government at all levels. And so I can understand why the software vendor has gone in that direction, why the auditor's office has gone in that direction. We do have to acknowledge that clearly there is a cost, not only in the auditor's office, but throughout the ripples throughout the system. But that doesn't mean we don't have to do it. So.
I will mention on page 2 of the redlined job description, there's some good financial language that we were talking about from the last job description. So I think the benefit here is that Ms. Brady, you've been doing this for, a long time, and you have a lot of people in your department that have been doing this for a long time. And I think the change in the job description reflect what's happening in your very, very busy department.
Yeah, we tried to, in fact, I try to use some of the auditor's language from what they're using, because I don't even understand some of the new stuff that's happening. And the AOD, I mean, it's great, I think, because the claims process for the payroll comes straight from AOD. So instead of having to do, set something in a different system, I mean, there's a lot of efficiencies that will be realized, I think, over time. It's just changing duties. And for us, it's cutting out there's no reason to add the court's financial manager to the loop, because there just isn't any reason to add one more person to the loop.
Yeah, and I just wanted to speak from the payroll side of things, that the financial manager from courts was doing that because of a reporting issue, needed some reports for certain things, and that's just the way it had always been done. But now we've learned how to allow them to operate independently and give the courts the same reporting that they need, so that that person isn't taking on those duties. So this is certainly an increased duty because they were not doing payroll before.
That's helpful perspective.
So I hear a lot of grumbling about AOD, but I don't really know what the issues actually do.
I think there are two fans here that maybe could say some things that would segue into some things I'm going to talk about later. So
it's made my life a lot easier. I don't come in on Sundays as often anymore.
Well, that's good.
I mean, we used to, we had time.
You don't come in Sundays at all.
Yeah.
I know.
to do
There
payroll.
was a time card for 40 men that was handwritten if they were taking comp time taken, comp time earned, holiday, half day, personal day. And you had to trickle through every one of them, figure them by hand, and try and get payroll right.
Wow.
AOD has, I love it. I know every department should be using. And if we can use it and our guys at that, anybody can do it. Because the guys, I mean, that's a huge change for them. There's been a time clock for 38 years out there.
Yeah,
And
There's
for
still
them to,
like an actual punch.
Yeah.
and for them to change to the app on their phone or clocking in with their badge, I would say probably out of those 40 guys, we probably haven't had 10 missed punches with them.
Wow. That's great.
Okay.
It's easy to follow. They can see their balances, their time, and they watch it to a T, let me tell you. So it's a lot better for us. It's a lot cleaner. It's a lot more transparent. I think we don't make the errors like we used to manually trying to figure it out. We use our system to make sure we get it right too in charts. And then we have the two systems to compare that once we turn in payroll, we're done. So it's 10 times better for our department.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're fans too. I think as far as the supervisors we have, including myself, 12 supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody does things just a little different, and this has made it consistent across the department. There's consistency, and also the employee service record. This feeds right into instead of Melissa every month having to take 87 employees and do their
We still have employee service records.
That's supposed to be automatic.
Well,
Coming, yes,
What?
yes.
it will be automatic.
It will be automatic. So this is something that's going to take less time.
Yeah, to me, there's duplication there and that's a headache, but
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I appreciate hearing that. That was great. That's very useful for me.
This is an official PAC policy. We do not want you coming in on Sundays. Coming in on Sundays.
Unless like the bridge is falling
Yeah.
down.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But if there's anything we can do, let us know.
We did it, so we've taken
Yeah,
care of that. Yeah.
Good.
there's still some Sundays out there, but that's
Yeah.
just my own.
All right.
Sure,
So
it's good for the office.
we are in letter A of multiple letters. So we're still on the request to amend the office administrator job description. Are there any other comments or questions, whether from PAC or staff?
Move we forward to the updated job description to list for classification for the office administrator.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously, and we'll get that off to WIS. All right, let's go on to letter B, a request for the creation of a new position by the title of data specialist.
Data
What's going
specialist.
on?
Okay, so I'm gonna back up a couple of years to a law that got passed, House Enrolled Act 1068 of 2021 by our Indiana General Assembly. And that law created local justice reinvestment advisory councils, or local JRACs. So every one of the 92 counties is by law to have a local JRAC. And the Community Corrections Advisory Board, according to the law, can choose to be and vote to become that local JRAC. And in our county, our Community Corrections Advisory Board did in fact vote to become the local JRAC. But since then, in terms of the duty, so I sent to you the copy of the law with the duties of the local JRAC, and they're significant. That these duties are they belong to the county. They don't belong to me. They don't belong to the probation department. They don't belong to the court. It belongs to the county. And so if you wouldn't mind, for education of the public, I would just say what the duties are by what the law says. And so the local JRAC is responsible for reviewing, evaluating, and making recommendations for local criminal justice systems and corrections programs, pretrial services, behavioral health treatment and recovery services, community corrections, and county jail and probation services. So that's the broad brush of making review, evaluate, make recommendations on. The next duty is to promote state and local collaboration between the advisory council and the local or regional advisory council. So there's a state JRAC that we have reports that have to be sent to. There are annual reports and quarterly reports. And at this point, the probation department has been doing all these reports for JRAC.
Oh, once again, Michelle, it's page 165.
Yeah, they were kind of in opposite order, I think.
Okay, that's,
Sorry about that.
well,
And right
there
there.
was so much.
There it is. I know, exactly.
Indiana,
It's right there. Yeah,
33, 38, 9.
Yes.
5-6.
yes. Then there's reports, compiling reports that have to be sent to the state JRAC. Then so far, every report that has had to be sent from our local JRAC has been completed by myself, along with my two deputies, was Troy Hatfield, now Anthony Williams and Becca Strite. The three of us have been completing those reports and forwarding them to the state. And then establishing committees to inform the work of the local regional council, because I think they realize, the legislator, that it's huge, that one group can't do all of this together. Communicate with the advisory council in order to establish and implement best practices and ensure consistent collection and reporting of data as requested by the state advisory council. And then oversee and manage grants. So we are getting grants from this. Yes, we're getting grants from this body, from the state JRAC. We've gotten grants for our community corrections programs, our problem solving courts, and our pretrial programs. So we are getting money from doing these things, and then preparing the annual report for the advisory council. It's due every year by March 31st. And again, we've been doing, we in probation have been doing this report. So at this point, we really haven't made a lot of progress in terms of the things that we're supposed to be evaluating and gathering data on. And so our advisory board, our local JRAC, voted to ask for technical assistance from the state. So the state JRAC is offering technical assistance. We just recently got assigned a couple of technical assistance advisors for the Center for Effective Public Policy, and they met with our local JRAC, Community Corrections Advisory Board. Councilor McKim was there for that meeting. They came in through Zoom, and they're going to be helping us to prioritize and to help get a plan in place for doing the job that the state has given us. So we believe that, especially Becca, Anthony, and I think Judge Dekoff also, I know she supports this, that we need a person to be assigned to collect this data and to be able to publish it and to be able to comply with all of the duties that are given to us. At least one person, it probably is more than a one person job, but at least the data part, the collection of the data, we believe that this data analyst would be a good starting place. And this is something we did talk about with our technical advisors, and they thought it was a good idea as well as a good starting place to start working on our local JRAC.
All right, well, thank you very much for that thorough explanation, Indiana code and history. Mr. McKim, any questions or comments?
This is one of those things where I really wish that we had done this a couple of years ago instead of both the commissioners and the council kind of making up their own groups to study a lot of the things that is specifically within the scope of JRAC. So I guess I very much support this in principle. I'm nervous, and this is more of a council issue, about adding any new positions to the general fund, given the budgetary constraints. So I have to say that I can't guarantee that I'm going to vote to include it in the budget, even if I support, which I think I do support moving this forward. Just to understand that that's a separate fiscal decision that we need to weigh with everything else. But yeah, I don't see how these the responsibilities that we have could be fulfilled without an actual staff person to do it. Because otherwise it's just it's a committee, and we know how well the commissioners committee that was sort of supposed to do the same thing, how well that worked. My initial thoughts.
Yeah, so I have long said that CCAB, the Community Corrections Advisory Board, is one of the best boards in terms of generating data and generating analysis for justice issues. Those meetings are so dense with information, and just the packet alone. I have asked, I don't sit on the advisory board anymore, but I've asked that those still be sent to me almost just to keep me up to speed. Because that's one of the best ways to do it. My question to you is, I think Mr. McKim was correct in highlighting the two bodies, the commissioners and the council created. And one of our biggest struggles on the council side was actually collecting data across jurisdictions, across departments. In your thinking, would this position be able to do that?
Yes, just in a word, yes. So we're, in addition to all the projects we're involved in, the probation department is just getting involved in another project called Justice Counts. And it's funded through the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and it's free. They're targeting Indiana local JRACs. So they're working through the state JRAC, and they're trying to come in and do technical assistance with local JRACs. And with what Justice Counts gives us is they take our data, so we don't do anything new or fancy or whatever. We just give them what we have, and they have a way of presenting it. I'll just say it's more digestible for the public.
I'm so excited.
Yes. Yeah. Instead of which we always publish an annual report, and that's great, but I can't tell you unless I take some extra time and run a report, how many people are on probation today? I don't know. I'd have to run a report. This would give like live data that we would be able to create a data dashboard for our county and whichever entities are interested in getting involved. So we're involved. Probation's going to do it. Other entities will have the opportunity to get involved if they want to. And in fact, I'm getting ready to go to a probation conference this week in French Lick. The Justice Counts people are doing a session to try to get more Indiana counties on board with this. Again, free opportunity, but any part of the criminal justice system can participate in this. And so at this point, we're getting involved and we'll educate and let other parts of the system know, hey, this is what it is if you want to get involved. So from what we've seen, the way the data is presented, it's just more digestible, even for me. I write the annual report every year, and this is much more usable data.
Yeah, I mean,
Excuse me,
annual
format.
reports
Yeah.
just aren't usable much, or aren't of much use to the public.
Mhm.
And even most practitioners, so.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about a public dashboard from the department that champions evidence-based practices in the justice field, yeah, I would understand why you would need a data specialist.
Yeah, so we're thinking that would just be one of the jobs, but anytime we get involved in any research initiative, which we're involved in several research initiatives, it always becomes one of those, and it's on our desk. It's one of the many things that my deputies and myself, we try to get around to, but it's just not our day-to-day priority to work with the researchers. And the more we can work with our researchers, the better we're going to be able to get live data back and help it really inform our practices.
All right, Mr. McKim, are you formulating a motion?
Yes, I will move that we forward the data specialist position for probation to WISP for classification.
I second that. Is there any discussion from the staff? Seeing none, any discussion online? Some people be trickling in here. Seeing none there, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it unanimously. We'll work with Michelle to get that off to us.
One thing I just want to point out, even though it would be for the person would be housed in the physically in the probation department, would report directly to Becca Stripe, the Community Corrections Executive Director. This would be for a data person for the local JRAC, and that's why I put it in the title of it, that it isn't just for probation, not just for the courts, it's for the entire, because if you see the law, the local JRAC doesn't just have probation in the courts.
Well, it includes the sheriff and
Exactly.
public defender and
Judges.
prosecutor.
Exactly. So I want to stress that it's not just, although it would work with us, and obviously part of our department, it would have duties, and the position would have duties beyond just our department.
That's great.
No, and I'm just asking it, would there be like funding somewhere that?
That's a great question. That's a great
This
question.
position, since it is with JRAC?
And when this law came in, that was my very first thing. We were really lobbying hard from our probation officers professional association to say, this needs to be funded. And of course, the legislature, they chose not to add any funding because the community corrections funding comes out of the DOC's budget, Department of Correction. There's a priority. Has anyone heard about the new jail or the new prison? The new prison that's being built. Yeah. So that was the DOC's priority, was to get a new prison. So we're kind of competing, when the DOC puts their budget out, prison is, takes a lot of money. So they did not and haven't asked for increases in community corrections monies. And so that's something both community corrections, the Community Corrections Professional Association, the Probation Professional Association, we're trying to work on, trying to lobby our legislators that we've got to have more money for it, not just even for operations. They haven't increased our operations money in 6 years. So yes, we hope, but it's Indiana.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's exciting. We do have 2 more departments.
thank you.
Just wanted to ask, if there.
Well, and on that
Yeah.
same vein, at some point, and this is probably not the forum to discuss it, but Peter might know, what about the opioid funding? I mean,
It's
directly
available and growing.
it is directly relevant.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
And since I didn't know what's going on, can we apply for the next round of opioid
I
funding?
would love to talk to you about that
Okay.
after this meeting.
all right,
Okay.
please follow up.
Okay.
I think we ought to be
Okay, well,
think broadly about funding
Okay,
sources.
yeah, sure.
All right, put my pack hat back on.
Okay.
We have our highway department here with Lisa Ridge and our MS4 Stormwater Coordinator Kelsey Thetonia here to talk about 3 different topics. Let's start at the very beginning.
Can I ask really one question on the
Please
PAC
do.
process? Is the process that you can only bring back a position one time within a year?
That's
Is
what
that
our
the
maintenance
process?
plan says.
Okay, I want to make sure, because I know you discussed a lot on the financial manager and the changes with that.
Yeah,
So I have positions that I had done right before all those changes implemented.
Yeah.
So
but
kind of
I mean,
something to think about.
it is, you know,
But I looked in the process and it said I couldn't bring it
Yeah.
back for a year, but it doesn't sound like a lot are waiting for that year.
Right.
Okay.
it would be totally up, you know, if you're liaison and like, you know, the PAC people would like want to
Okay.
bypass that, you know.
Okay. So what we brought for you today is a creation of a new position under stormwater, and it's a stormwater technician. IDEM has required and we're pretty narrative in the description here. Happy to read it. IDEM changed the process. Everyone was required to pass a new stormwater ordinance by July 1st, which with the help of the legal department, Kelsey and was able to get that passed on June 5th and meet that deadline. However, the workload has increased and will increase tremendously. We've never had a permit program. We've never had to charge for permits. We've taken over the logging and the grading permits from the planning department as part of the new ordinance. So this is one of the reasons why we were needing to create the new position. And then also amend 2 existing positions to cover the duties and the additional duties for this new requirement.
All right, well, thank you very much. And thank you for the 3 paragraphs of narration. That is very helpful. Good. Did you want to add anything?
We also this year had the legislature pass the rules saying that we cannot regulate land disturbing activity on slopes 15% or greater like we had been doing. They set the threshold 25% or greater. So at the direction of the commissioners and the stormwater board, we set the threshold for requiring stormwater permits to include all new single-family residential homes, specifically to watch for development on steeper slopes and to be able to have more inspections, have eyes on the ground, since we cannot prohibit or just our rules have changed locally for what we can and cannot regulate for steep slopes.
All right, Mr. McKim, we'll start us off.
So this new position, stormwater technician, how will the existence, if this position were created, how would the existence of this position either help or hurt the effort to get more houses built? I understand I'm being a little political here, but that's not my number 1 priority for anything I hear here.
The only change in the process for building a new home is to apply for a stormwater permit. And we charge a small fee that covers our staff time for plan review and inspections and final closeout inspections. It's a few $100s. We tried to keep it very straightforward for single family homes, particularly because we do not want to hold up the process. The planning department already requires a certified plot plan for any new single family home. And the only addition is that they'll have to show their stormwater control measures on that certified plot plan, which is something we've already been working with local surveyors and engineers to do. So the process for a new single family home, that's just a regular lot and unplatted or building a home, is going to be still fairly straightforward and not much different than what we were requiring before. We still need to require state permitting for land disturbance of 1 acre or more. So those are the larger projects, which are going to be more involved anyway. The main goal of looking at homes as they're being built is for the protection of their investment, because we want to make sure that development, whether it's on a slope or near waterways or something, we make sure that it turns away from the home, that the controls in place during construction protect our sensitive environmental areas, sinkholes, things like that. Our goal is to make sure that development in the county is done in a safe way for the environment and a good investment for the property owners.
So how would these changes that we're talking about today, how would they have affected the trails project that just got rejected? I mean, would they have had any impact on?
So, the state still requires the LINs or permitting for anything 1 acre or larger. So this is our local permit. The state delegates that to us locally, so.
But still requires it. Okay. Thank you.
Michelle, can we pull up the org chart here? You had it handy? That's amazing. All right, so we see the stormwater section of the highway department in bright green. Oof.
It's visible.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's part of the job description. All right, so this stormwater technician is down there in pink because it's a new position, and this position would report to the program manager. Is that correct? Do I see that correctly?
Which that would be the only change that we're requesting is the MS4 coordinator be changed to stormwater program manager.
Which total no brainer. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody.
and what MS4 means, so we think it makes it a little bit more simple. That's why we're changing the title of the MS4 assistant also.
Yeah.
So that's letter C, but right now, we're down in the.
Yes.
A, yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're down there. Yeah. Okay, so I've got that straight in my head. One of the things that was mentioned was that this position is going to help with the climate resiliency for the county. How would that actually work?
So I've included in all those 3 programs that they can participate in climate resiliency initiatives, because much of what our program does is already part of the actions involved in that plan. So what we're already doing as far as updating our ordinances, studying the effectiveness of our ordinances, inspecting infrastructure on the grounds of green infrastructure, detention facilities, working to make sure that they're functioning properly, and looking ahead to see if there's any new infrastructure we need to install to prepare for the future. All 3 of those positions help in that in some way. So I think it's just implementing as we go my direction, what projects or policies we want to put forward, they'll help in that sense.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, these would be some of the first positions dedicated to climate resiliency that we've ever considered it here at PAC.
I think putting that term in the job description is probably new.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And I would just encourage grants to be looked for as well.
Okay.
But I know that might be outside the purview of what's happening in this section of the highway department, but. All right. Mr. McKim has one more comment and then I'll get to.
Okay, well, maybe the same. Actually, I was just going to ask if Tron, as member of the Stormwater Board, it supports the creation of this.
First and foremost, I absolutely support the creation of this. It'll also be helping with the new permitting, which will probably have a significant learning curve due to the office now taking over those roles. I have just one other kind of point I wanted to bring up. I had asked for the job descriptions. I had reviewed them, tried to do my best to sit down and understand some of the workflow. So that org chart was perfect if you wanted to bring that back up.
Oh.
A lot of people are probably like, why is Tron and Randolph, the elected Monroe County surveyor, sitting here and discussing any of this? Well, for one, part of the Deanna Code talks about the Stormwater Board and the powers of this board, and that the Stormwater Management Board is really the controller of this. Now, there's different ways that we can delegate responsibilities and authorities, and we have done that. We have done it officially and more kind of informal by kind of recommending them to proceed in such a way. So one thing that I want to bring up first is it doesn't on this org chart state anything about the Stormwater Management Board. And again, that's probably why some people know why I'm here and some people probably don't have a clue, because this is one of my statutory duties, something, I pledge an oath to do the best of my abilities to serve on. With that said, I really would like some type of recognition, and having the coordinator or manager, which I support too, report to the superintendent and then director, really creates an interesting workflow because this isn't anything I was involved in initially, or I would have expressed this prior to the adjustment of this org chart. And I think we should at least recognize the stormwater board to have a unilateral kind of way of communicating with the highway director, if that's going to be kind of the person above Kelsey. But with the superintendent, it convolutes it, in my opinion, and it really creates a bottleneck of communication and who is the appropriate contact. Because if I look at this and I follow this, the first person I would contact would be Toby versus Kelsey. And it's like, do I need to contact Toby to talk to Kelsey? Do I need to contact Lisa? I know it's all semantics, but I'm looking 10 years out. Let me walk something back. It has nothing to do with the folks here. When we restructured the highway department to have the superintendent directly report to the director, I wrote a letter of support. So I think Lisa's doing a
Yeah, I think
fabulous job.
We
But-
just had to do some cleanup work
Right,
last year
right.
because there was a supervisory issue there.
Absolutely. I'm just stating my support that I continuously had to looking at this. And the only reason I'm ever even involved is because of the stormwater program. And so that's just something I wanted to share. And then looking at the jobs, I see how a lot of people all directly report to one person. In my office, I created more of a authoritative structure where we had like a senior and then, then just like a senior tech, a PS and then a PS technician that reports directly to them. Same with our GIS coordinator, a GIS technician that directly reports to the coordinator, and then they report to me. Now, it doesn't say I don't work directly with them, and I'm not suggesting that you don't have that relationship, but I think what that really does is allow that immediate supervisor to maximize the efficiency of their ongoings, like what type of inspections are they going to do, commercial, residential, what kind of reporting, and if there's a workflow or a concerned area like a large development, that immediate supervisor can delegate them to focus on it, and it's going to enhance that cross training and that institutional knowledge that's really valuable to preserve. So I would, in my opinion, consider structuring that so it's almost like two legs. You have the crew and then you have the program is kind of how I distinguish them. And the program, I think, could over time, and I'm not sure where Lisa or Kelsey's real position is on this, but having kind of more of a structure where, one person reporting to one and so on. And so then eventually that kind of like what we see on the crew side, where you have the two people at the bottom kind of reporting to one and then up and so forth. I think that might be more valuable. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4 positions plus the stormwater crew.
But the crew technically doesn't report to Kelsey every day.
Right, no,
They're at the highway garage, a totally different facility.
right. No,
So it's
I
really
understand.
tricky on making, it's not as simple as you got 5 people in an office and who they're gonna report to. And sometimes I think that, you have those 4 people going straight to Kelsey, but then you're creating more levels of controversy when you're adding more steps of supervisory when they work very independent of themselves and can report straight to Kelsey. But making all these tiers of supervisors is.
And I have to say, I agree with Lisa on this one. In general, I think the idea of having supervisors that supervise very small numbers of people is not necessarily a good idea.
Right. And I'm not talking about the crew, just kind of on the program. I think there's a lot of opportunity to do some cross training, streamlining some of the operations. I have faith in Kelsey that she can juggle all these personnels all at once too. But this is just.
I think the
I'll
new
let you-
stormwater technician and the stormwater inspector position, those are really, if you read those are very interrelated of cross training and assisting each other to help that workload. But
And to that point, I want to narrow our focus just a little bit here. We are here to talk about the stormwater technician and whether or not we want to push this onto WIS.
We forward the stormwater technician description to WIS.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. I'm looking to staff. If there's any further conversation or discussion? Any further discussion from our highway colleagues? Seeing none, any online? Seeing none there either. All those in favor of moving this to WIS, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you for.
Very welcome.
That sounds like a very good conversation to continue at some point. All right, next, we're going to go on to letter B, a request to amend 2 job descriptions. Walk us through this. What's going on?
Sure. Jeremy, this is, yeah. So I have 2 positions who help with different program areas for the MS4 permitting, the stormwater inspector and the MS4 assistant. Previously, so like before 2021, there was one person doing all of the work for education and outreach, storm sewer mapping, construction, inspections, post-construction, which, as you know, we weren't really doing, no other MS4 in the state were doing. That's why I created the stormwater inspector position, and then the municipal operations supervision as well. So we created the stormwater inspector position to inspect new stormwater infrastructure and to handle the post-construction stormwater management program, which the state was just starting to actually hold MS4s accountable. No other MS4 was really tracking or inspecting regularly those detention ponds and other stormwater treatment measures that we require by our ordinance. So when the previous MS4 assistant left at the end of 2021, the stormwater inspector took on all the construction inspections as they needed to fill that need. And the stormwater inspector to this day is still handling all the construction inspections. So the job description needed to be updated a while ago. So this reflects how our program is currently operating, where the MS4 assistant handles the state MS4 reporting, all the other state requirements, the education outreach programming, illicit discharge program, and municipal operations, inspections and reporting. Stormwater inspector is handling all of these stormwater permitting, construction, stormwater inspections, and post-construction long-term inspections, and all enforcement related to construction and construction.
All right, we've got 2 red line job descriptions in front of us. Mr. McKim, do you want to kick us off?
And so at this point, is the thought that the changes are substantive enough that they need to be central reclassification? Is that your understanding?
And particularly the inspector, because the position has taken on much more than what was originally anticipated when the job was created. We'll say the MS4 assistant also performs regular stormwater inspections, not specifically construction, but has the ability to, and has certification to do all that as well.
This stormwater inspection job description is massive. It's a lot of work. One of the things that jumped out at me, I'm sorry, Mr. McKim, were you finished?
Go ahead.
Was that this position would supervise graduate student fellows and interns. Is that work currently being done by the MS4 position and shifting over to this position?
So both the MS4 assistant and inspector have that in their job descriptions. I'm formerly the supervisor according to IU, but they've helped me with hiring process, and the inspector right now is set up to approve timesheets at least. The MS4 assistant, we have 2 fellow positions in our office. So right now, the MS4 assistant is working with one of the fellows on the water quality monitoring program, which is new. We haven't done that in a while, and they both overseeing different projects depending on what the fellows are working on. But for example, the past few years, we've put a lot of hours into our post-construction inventorying, where we send interns out, we train them, and have them inspect and inventory different infrastructure on the county. So the inspector's been heavily involved with that.
And then it seems to me like you want to change the position title from MS4 assistant to stormwater specialist.
Trying to get rid of the MS4 acronym because it's not friendly to the public. Nobody knows what we do. So having something more stormwater related will better convey what we do, I think.
And I also noticed that you took out, I'm sorry, the department took out language regarding SWEET, the Stormwater Environment Education Team. Is that still an active body?
It is, and I added in a sentence a bit more broad about coordinating with other environmental educating entities in the county. But I've had some discussions where we're talking about either renaming SWEET or structuring it differently so that maybe annually we change who runs those meetings. We just need to freshen it up a little bit more broad. And so there's still the requirement to coordinate with other educators.
I don't have any other questions or, I mean, this is a lot. That, I mean, I'm happy to do it. I think whenever I learn more about a department, it's just mind boggling how much happens.
Okay, so I move we send the position descriptions for stormwater inspector and stormwater specialist. Is that correct? For classification.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further conversation, particularly from staff at this point?
No.
No? Is there any further conversation from those joining us online? Seeing, is it? Sure, maybe you have any?
No, I fully support that. I appreciate the discussion. So, yeah.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Work with Michelle to get this off to WIS for you. The first one. All right, let's move on to letter C, request to update a job title. What's going on?
The job title, there's no changes to the job description, it's just the title. So it will come back to the entire council once we receive the items from above from WIS. So that way it'll all be done at the same time.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
So no action needed.
No action.
Yeah, no action needed, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you very
here.
much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to item number 8 on this lengthy agenda. And we'll be with Employee Services, eSense and Science here to request to amend a series of job descriptions. What's going on here?
Yes, so I had attached a memo with all of the things that I did, just sort of outlining in detail what the goals of restructuring our office are. But just in general, there are 3 employees and we serve 800 employees in everything from hiring through termination. We manage all of payroll, all of employees' benefits. We're training employees, training supervisors. Some additional things that you've heard today about LAO and AOD. That is a big portion of what we do in our office. The auditor's office was explaining the need to have 2 people doing the claims process. I am requesting 2 people to do the payroll claims process for similar reasons. The transition to AOD, one of the biggest things that we've seen over the past 6 months is related to employee service records, like they mentioned earlier. AOD will accumulate all of the information that is entered in the timekeeping system, and it will produce that employee service record. But the problem there is that information needs to be 100% accurate when it goes in, because it can't be changed after the fact, which is different than what we've done with our Excel files and things. And so my request is to have one payroll administrator that focuses on compensation and compliance. And what I mean there is that person's going to process payroll, but they're going to make sure that the salary ordinance is being followed, that every all the information a department sends to us matches the salary ordinance, which will help Kim in part of her process. And then also the compliance piece is that there are a lot of employment regulations we have to follow for taxes and all of that stuff. So that person will focus on that. And then the second, so amending that person's job title to reflect that portion of things. The payroll administrator job descriptions are identical, except that they will have certain focuses. They will share the duties. The second payroll administrator would focus on attendance and benefits, meaning that they're going to audit every single time card that gets turned in prior to processing payroll to ensure that it is accurate. Departments have done an excellent job adapting to AOD, but there are still some errors that we see that require some education and just a little bit more oversight from our office. There are a lot of aspects in the new timekeeping system that departments are no longer able to take care of on their own. There were certain parts of managing their benefits and things like that that they could fix on a timesheet, but we've taken that responsibility away from them to ensure accuracy, that they can't make those changes. So that puts a little bit more work on our plate. I'm happy to go into as much detail as you want here, but we think that that will ensure more accuracy and efficiency. It took the auditor's office 6 months to audit the employee service records this past year, and we are hoping that if we transition to having another person do that before we process payroll, that will eliminate the amount of work done on their end after the fact, free them up to do a lot of the other things they need to do. All that being said, that will create some other ripple effects in our office, taking away all of the payroll aspects to the employee services assistant and having them focus only on HR tasks. I, in my dream world, thought that having 3 people in our office would make my life a lot easier. And for whatever reason, I don't know, it's been much, there's been a lot more things to do this year. So I am asking for a person to be a backup to myself to focus only on the HR duties. Having someone split between payroll and HR is very complicated. And what we've seen over the past 12 months is that person couldn't really support payroll in the way that we would have liked and had to focus a lot on some of the tasks that I was asking them to do. Basically, it is that person will absorb most of my task-oriented day-to-day activities and also support me in more strategic functions. And so that is the gist of everything.
All right, thank you for the gist. Mr. McKim, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, this is big.
Yeah.
So just so big picture, are you trying to create 2 net new positions or one?
It's one net new and then changing the titles to all of them and changing job duties to all of them.
While Mr. McKim formulates his questions, I will comment on the memo that you drafted was very helpful.
Cool.
The one aspect I think that I found particularly helpful from a council member's perspective was your emphasis on retention.
Yeah.
It is expensive to bring in new staff.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's a headache on your end as well. And so I think we're singing from the same hymn book there. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think one of our goals, if we can have the ability to think more strategically in our office by having some additional staff, would be to support you and the departments in your efforts for that retention. And from us, that looks like giving you metrics that would help you be able to quantify some things, which we just don't have the time to do now or work with you to do.
Well, the council loves to quantify.
Do you have a sense of how big the city of Bloomington's HR department is?
It's 9 people.
Yeah, I mean, it always seems like ours is just absurdly small.
Yeah.
Given the number of FTEs we have. And I at one point we had an HR director.
Yep.
And for reasons, we kind of took a step back. And I think we always knew that was sort of temporary, and it was a way to solve a problem that we had at the moment, and it worked. But that
we were doing the tasks that needed to get done. I think we can, if we move in this direction, you know, I think we can do some more things that we need to do. It complicates things that we are also doing payroll, which takes on, you know, I would say we have 4 people, but the city also is not doing all of payroll in their HR department. They do half of it, I believe. So I'm hopeful that we can get more done with this model. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, there's still a lot of things we can't do. There's an entire room behind me that has records that we would like to digify and maintain in a better way. But that's a pipe dream. So there are a lot of things, but I think that we can do some good work if we're able to move in this direction.
And to that point, I mean, just the services that our employees are able to receive from your department, which are valuable.
Mhm.
The other thing that popped out in your memo was the statistic from the Society for Human Resource Management, which recommends an HR to employee ratio of 1 to 100 for efficient HR service delivery. Our current average employee count is 700, putting our HR to employee ratio at approximately 1 to 350.
And that's only looking, I took payroll out of that because while it is a function, I think that that's really looking at the HR function, which is working with departments and helping employees, you know, onboard and see them through that life cycle. So I think that's really important. I mean, the biggest thing that we've heard from departments and that our goal, we want to do in-person orientation, in-person things that we just don't have the time to be able to do. We love it or hate it, but we switched the clinic and we went out to departments and we talked to those people. And if we're able to have the time to be able to go out and be more hands-on with departments, explain to them their benefits, explain and answer questions, things like that, I think that can create that culture of retention because we're a little bit more hands-on and trying to help them understand Monroe County government.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from the PAC perspective, I support this. As you can imagine, we still have to look at the budgetary big
Yep, I
picture. We
understand.
have to figure out whether we can afford a cost of living adjustment for
Yeah.
employees. So with that in mind, I don't know how we're going to pay for it, but I mean, I am well aware that we are dramatically under-resourced as far as the HR department goes.
Appreciate that.
I appreciate the attempt to modernize the function of that department. So with that in mind, I move that we forward the entire package to WIS for classification.
Second. Is there any further discussion from, I guess, Ms. Joe? The other thing I want to point out is your point, the emphasis in your memo on diversity and inclusion. That is so important. It is so important.
We have some goals that we would like. This is a future conversation, but Linda and I have actually talked about this a lot, about an applicant tracking and onboarding system. And I think that will help us reach some of our goals for diversifying our applicant pools and things like that.
So on that matter, do we use Indeed or any of the onboarding platforms?
We do use Indeed. It's a cumbersome process right now. TSD will post it on there. If we can get an applicant tracking system, it will automate that posting and it will send it out to many more platforms that we can try and drive that traffic, which I think will be helpful. It also, an applicant tracking system would have some ways that would automatically filter out applicants based on their qualifications. There's just a lot more things we could do with that.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to letter B then, the request for the creation of a new position.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. We've been talking about it. Mr. McKim, do you have any other thoughts or comments about the payroll administrator?
Oh, hang on. Well, my motion applied to all of them. I guess I thought we were talking about the whole.
I didn't see that down there either.
For those watching online.
But we're still at net one new position.
We're still at
Right.
Yes, so I'm okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a separate item. I was treating the whole reorganization as a package.
All right, I think we're done with number 8. So then let's move on to number 9, the approval of summary minutes as presented. Mr. McKim, do you have any other changes to the minutes?
Nope.
I don't either. They're approved by acclamation. Mr. McKim, do you want any final words?
I do not.
I don't either. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.